Hello, welcome back. Today we're here to talk about 2015's Avengers: Age of Ultron. So I'm gonna say this about this one. The way I feel about it kind of depends on the viewing.
Yeah.
Because there are times where I watch it, I'm like, oh, this is really good. It's really underrated. That people should pay more attention to this one. And then there are times when I watch it where I'm like, oh, this is really mediocre. This last time I watched it, I'm more on the mediocre side. I still think there's a lot to like about it, but it's not fantastic.
This, I think, was my third viewing of this movie ever. And I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought that I would, but I still wouldn't rank it amongst the greats.
Yeah.
I think that the issue is that as far as Marvel movies go, we can agree that most Marvel movies prior to like 2020 were good.
Yeah.
Right? They had very few misses.
Right.
And so with the Age of Ultron, I think that we can all agree, as far as movies go, it's pretty good. It's okay.
That's good.
But we hold Marvel movies to a higher standard because they put out other huge hits.
Well, and it followed the Avengers. And the Avengers was such a big hit, and it didn't really live up to that. So let's start off with the plot and story. So what happens is they're hunting down Hydra because Hydra has Loki's old scepter. Tony has a vision induced by Wanda that makes him think that because of him, the Avengers are going to die because he didn't do everything he could. So because of that, they use the scepter. He and Bruce Banner use the scepter to create Ultron so that Ultron will bring peace and make sure that nothing will ever happen to humans from the outside world. And Ultron does not understand that because he doesn't think humans can be peaceful. So his new motive becomes destroy humanity and let robots, basically as the next step of evolution, so let robots rule the earth.
Yeah.
That, and then the Avengers are trying to stop him. So that's the main storyline. And what I will say about the main storyline is it's good. I like that story. I think they did a good job telling that. My problem with it, though, is it branches off a lot. And it does little things to set up future installments, which sometimes the payoff work and okay, let me phrase this too, because everything that's set up in Age of Ultron pays off really well in the future. And so I think that the fact that they set everything up the way they did shows that they actually had a plan, which is cool. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it detracts from the movie that you're watching. And there are moments, for example, where like Thor just randomly leaves the group and gets into a pool of water and sees the Infinity Gauntlet. And that makes no sense with the story that's happening.
But they needed to set up another movie.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. But that, it detracts from the movie. And then there's also scenes where it shows Tony and Steve butting heads on, like, how you handle politics, how you handle, like, being a superhero. Do you try to stop the problem before it happens, or do you...
Setting up a course for Civil War.
Setting up Civil War, exactly. So... And that, that one I think fit a little bit more into the dynamic of what they were doing, but Thor's did not at all. I also really do not like the Bruce Banner. Anything Bruce Banner or Tasha Romanoff did not work for me at all. And then they didn't go anywhere with it in the future, so, you know, whatever. So I just think that on a plot and story level, whenever its main story's going forward, it's good. Whenever they say, hey, let's set up something real quick, then come back. Oh, and then there's also the Wakanda setup for Black Panther, which didn't need to be there. So... Anyway, it branched off a few too many times. It felt a little bit jumbled. And it felt like at the very end, after they create Vision, is like, okay, now let's finish the story.
Right.
And so I don't know. It took too many pauses. It wandered off a little too often, but it's still not enough to be super offensive.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's not like Man of Steel where you have a bunch of storylines that are really, really important and they take up a lot of screen time. It's just like every now and again, you get a 5-minute scene of we're in Wakanda now getting some adamantium, or we are in a pool naked with Chris Hemsworth, and we're seeing a Vision. So, I mean, it's not as offensive as like the Man of Steel.
No, yeah.
I gave it a 3.5. It definitely felt like it was moving along. It felt like it had a point.
Yeah.
But it's nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, who didn't see Age of Ultron, I don't think that their buddies came to work the next day and they're like, hey, listen, you've got to see this movie. That plot kept me in there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree with that. I also gave it a 3.5 for similar reasons. I think it's good. I think it could have been better if they would have focused on it a little bit more, maybe had Ultron do a little bit more than just recruit Wanda and Quicksilver and then build bodies for himself. I think if they had actually had him, messing with the internet a little bit more, they could have had more. But it's fine. It's 3.5.
To start. Tony,
I am unable to access the mainframe. What are you trying
we're
to...
having a nice talk. I'm a peacekeeping program created to help the Avengers.
You are malfunctioning. If you shut down for a moment...
I don't get it. The mission. Give me a second.
Peace in our time. Peace in our time.
That is too much. They can't be... Oh, no.
You are in distress.
No. Yes.
If you will just allow me to contact Mr.
Why
Stark...
do you call him sir?
I believe your intentions to be hostile.
I'm here to help.
Stop. Please, may I...
Acting and characters. Here's the thing. We've already established they're all really good actors. They nail their roles really well.
Yeah, I don't even feel like we need to talk about the old actors. Let's talk about the new guys.
No.
Let's talk about the new guys. I don't know why... Wanda shouldn't have tried to do an accent because we know she's going to give it up anyway, so there's no reason to have it there.
Well, and Pietro, is that what they called him?
Oh, yeah, Quicksilver.
His accent was even worse, I
Yeah.
thought. Like, they just, yeah.
Well, and the thing with him is that I wish... I know that they didn't have the rights, but come on. What was
Strucker.
Strucker?
Instead of Striker. Yeah.
Strucker and Quicksilver. I expected an off-brand Wolverine to come out, you know?
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was just... I mean, come on. But here's the thing. I'm glad that we did get Wanda into the universe. I wish that we could have kept Quicksilver. I like both of them. So I like those characters quite well. I'm glad that we had them. But the acting was not phenomenal in this movie. Wanda definitely gets better.
Wanda gets
Elizabeth
better.
Olsen gets better in
Yeah.
that role, but she had to hit her stride.
Whoever voices Ultron, I like him.
He was fun.
I like him.
Yeah, no, he did a good job. I liked him a lot.
He's got a very good... And I know Ultron is kind of a mixed package. Some people really liked him, some people really didn't. I lean more towards I like that character. I think... And a lot of the complaint I hear with Ultron is that he joked around too much. But here's the thing. They mention in there that he is a lot like Tony. Because he's got Tony Stark's... He's like, at one point she goes, Ultron can't tell the difference between saving the world and destroying it. Where does he think he gets that from? Something like that.
Yeah.
It shows that Ultron has a lot of Tony Stark in him, and Tony Stark is very sarcastic.
Mm-hmm.
He throws a lot of quips in there. It makes sense to me that Ultron would do that too, because of the similarities that they share. So it doesn't bother me that he's a little sarcastic and a little quippy. I don't think his quips were always super funny, but I think that the fact that he did that was...
Yeah, we'll get to writing. I'll talk about that in cinematics, but yeah, I mean, as far as the characters go, I really didn't have any problems with any of them that were like super strong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they all had minor flaws here and there, but I think as a whole, we've come to expect that Marvel knows how to cast their heroes with very few exceptions. So I gave it a 4. It's not... There's no parts that are like very, very offensive, but as far as the new characters coming into the movie go, I didn't love a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about action, how I feel about Ultron as a character, but I think that the voice actor was really good, and I actually quite enjoyed the just the whole performance of most of the characters. So I gave it a 4.
I did too. I gave it a 3.5 because I actually think that the characters weren't, even the old ones weren't as likable as they have been in the past for whatever reason. I think that Bruce Banner and Tasha Romanoff's love thing really did not work for me. I think that Thor once again kind of got the shaft, and that he had more screen time in this one, but he didn't get to say much. Yeah. He was just kind of there. And Captain America and Tony Stark are, their dynamic is good, but I just felt like Tony's not all that likable in this one because he refuses to apologize for... I mean, that fits.
Ultron, yeah.
That fits with his character, so it's, nitpicking a little bit, but anyway.
But he didn't even say, "Hey, I messed up, guys."
Yeah,
so.
No, he was convinced he was right the entire time, and you could very clearly see that he wasn't, and so it made him a little less likable. And anyway, yeah, a 3.5. It's fine. They're good.
That's it.
Stark will take care of it.
No, he won't.
You don't know what you're talking about. Stark's not crazy.
He will do anything to make things right.
Stark, come in. Stark. Anyone on comms?
Ultron can't tell the difference between saving the world and destroying it. Where do you think he gets that?
The action in this movie, I had the same issues with this as I've had in a lot of Marvel movies, and especially the Avengers movies. And no, Endgame and Infinity War are not free of this sin. Mindless drones.
Mm-hmm.
You can throw an infinite number of Ultrons at the Avengers and they're just breaking them.
Yeah.
Not a single one of those robots that wasn't the main one did any damage to anybody.
No.
So there's no reason for them to be there.
Yeah.
They were just fodder for the Avengers to fight. And I get that we like watching them use their power. We like seeing the lightning come from Thor's hammer. We like seeing Wanda rip them into balls. We like seeing Vision phase through them as we get a random amount of powers from him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like phasing through people. He's got the laser beam. He's flying.
Yeah.
I mean, he can pick up Thor's hammer. He can just do everything, which is cool. I'm fine. I get it. But the fact of the matter is, I get that we wanted to see that to an extent, but it gets boring. I mean, just if they just had one Ultron for each of them that was an actual physical match.
Yeah.
You know what would be cool? If Ultron built a body for each of them.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, he
I would've
had
been
like
for
one that was like super strong and he could like, and his whole point was like, I can do it better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would have been sick.
That would have been awesome.
That would have been
Yeah.
so tight, but instead they were like, what if we just had like 100 little Ultrons and
Yeah.
one big Ultron? It just didn't mean anything.
I agree. And
You
that's
know?
actually, that point was especially potent in this movie for whatever reason. Because when the first Avengers came out and you had all the Jatari at the end, I thought that was cool at the time. I'm a little over it now, but at the time I thought that was super cool. But then they do the exact same thing in Age of Ultron.
Yep.
And it wasn't cool anymore. The final battle is actually my least favorite part of the movie because it drags, it's long, and it's not particularly interesting to watch. What I will say, though, is that this movie does have one very good action scene that I always enjoy, and it's the Hulkbuster versus the Hulk.
Yeah.
The scene when Tony Stark gets in his armor and has to take out Hulk because Wanda has made him Hulk out, that is a fun scene. It's both funny to watch, but it's like some really good action sequences some cool action shots in that shot. So, on an action level, I think it's still good. I mean, Marvel has cool heroes that do cool things, and it's still fun to watch them, but it's nothing great.
Yeah.
And that's why I gave it a 3.5 once again on an action level.
I had to be a little bit more critical on this because you know what the end battle felt like? It felt like the end battle of Iron Man 2, where you have a bunch of drones that don't have any chance of beating Iron Man, and then you get Whiplash. So what was the point of the drones?
Right.
They were there to wreak havoc, I guess. I mean, it just it didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had to give it a 2.5. The fact of the matter is that there are some action sequences that are good. There are some things that are fun to watch, but as a whole, kind of a letdown.
Yeah.
So
I get that.
Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. I'm sorry.
Cinematically, this movie has a lot of Marvelisms where, you have like the same camera angles used over and over again, not a whole lot of changes. My issue with the cinematics in this movie has nothing to do with any of that. The music was good, the costume design was mostly good. My issue is the writing. Some of the lines, the dialogue in this movie are like borderline CW dialogue. Like the old man said, together.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. Am I supposed to feel something? It's so cheesy.
Yeah, and there's another part in it. They're trying to make jokes because they're trying to be Marvel, right?
Yeah.
There's a scene, 2 hours into the movie. 2 hours. The problem has been happening. They know what the conflict is. And then one scene, when they're meeting with Nick Fury, Black Widow goes, when you guys tried to build a protection program, you amazingly failed. And I'm like, What? That is not funny. It's kind of stupid. In fact, I'm going to say it is stupid.
And we know.
We've seen that. So why is that line there? You know what I mean? So yeah, the line is bad. Also, another thing I wanted to mention is that the color scheme is weird.
It was really gray.
It was gray and almost orange in parts. Yeah. And I was like, why is it not just? Why don't you have just your normal color palette? Why do you have to do something orange and gray? Like, the color scheme
definitely
it
felt
was,
like they were mixing with filters and stuff.
It was weird. Yeah, it was really weird. And also, something else I noticed is that it actually didn't have a score going on most of the time.
Yeah,
it was pretty silent.
Hate that, though. I don't hate that. I think that's a good technique to use in certain parts of the movie. I didn't have any problem with like the time where it didn't have music in the background. The music that it did have, I thought was good.
Yeah, but they didn't use the Avengers theme. I noticed even in the opening scroll, they used
kind of
something completely different. And I actually didn't love the music that they. I mean, it was fine, but I don't think it was all that.
I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
Listen, the writing was rough in this movie. The dialogue was not good, and you know, Marvel always does this thing where they will make a joke at the expense of a serious growth in a character.
Mm-hmm.
But in this movie, it was just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
It was just brutal. So, I mean, the thing is that most of the cinematics were fine, but nothing pushed the envelope.
No.
And there were some things that were bad. So I had to give it a 2.5.
I gave it a 3. I think for the most part it's still cinematically good, but it's just not anything special, and it's kind of just barely above average. So, yeah, I think it a 3.
That's the best you can do!
You had to ask.
This is the best I can do. This is exactly what I wanted. All of you against all of me. How can you possibly hope to stop me?
Like the old man said. Together.
On an entertainment scale, I think this is one that actually does hit pretty well. This is an entertaining movie to watch. I have watched this one several times, and I think that is a reflection of the fact that it is quite rewatchable for me for whatever reason. Like I said, how much I like it varies depending on what mood I'm in, apparently. But I don't get bored during this movie. I think that it's got a lot of fun aspects to it, and the fact that I do enjoy these characters and their dynamic together, and I do enjoy Ultron as a villain pretty well. It makes this movie very watchable for me and very entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I think that as a whole, it's pretty good. I know that a lot of people consider this like the worst Marvel movie, or at least they did until Captain Marvel came out and Eternals came out.
Yeah,
I think that this movie is good enough.
I agree.
For what it is. Mm-hmm. I don't think that it deserves nearly as much hate as it gets. I also don't think that it deserves praise. Mm-hmm. I mean, of all of the movies in the world, this is certainly one of them, and I don't have any issues with that. So, entertainment-wise, I think it deserves at least a 3.5.
I gave it a 4. I think it's perfectly entertaining. It's not one that I think is like, you're not only entertained, but you're going to be thinking about it all the time, because that's not what it is. But it's entertaining. I think there's nothing about it that's not entertaining. So my total score was right down the middle. I gave it a 3.5. I think it's a good B movie. It's not a it's not a C, it's a B. Not really even a B plus. It's just a B.
Yeah.
And I think that, it wasn't, because they tried to do so many of the same things that the original Avengers did, it wasn't going to live up to that. And I actually didn't see this one in theaters. This one came out when I was serving a mission for my church, and so I wasn't there for all the hype. And from what I hear, the hype built it up to this point where there was no way it was going to live up to that. Mm-hmm. But I didn't feel that hype, so I've never had that problem. But yeah, I think it's a 3.5. It's a solid movie. Not a great, but it's a good.
Yeah, I didn't really do the math. I think that I sat somewhere around like a 3.3 on this one, and I think that that's fair as well. I mean, it's not... Look, if you haven't seen it, you might as well, But here's the thing, if you haven't seen this one, you're probably so far behind it might not be worth it anymore.
Unless you plan on catching up now.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, because this is actually one that if you want to know what's going on in the MCU, you kind of need to watch this.
Yeah, it definitely does a lot of world building.
Yeah, a lot of setup.
Look, here's my thing. Movies are cool. You should watch more of them. If you think that this might be some kind of thing that tickles your fancy, then go for it. If you really want to get into the MCU, if you just want to watch like a decent movie, you just want to watch a good standalone movie, this isn't the movie for you.
What I will say about that, though, is I don't think you need to watch any of the ones that came before this to know what's going on.
Only if you want to know who the characters are.
Sure, that's fair. But like as far as like story-wise, there's nothing that happens in the ones previous that is really gonna maybe the first Avengers, maybe. But like, it's anything that comes after this that you're gonna want to watch this one for.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Anyway, that gives us a total of 3.4. It's very middle tier. Upper middle,
it's all right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's totally fine. It's the weakest Avengers, but actually the fact that it is the weakest Avengers says a lot about the Avengers franchise.
Definitely, yeah.
Because this is not a bad movie.
Definitely. Tune in next week when we watch a different movie.
I believe it's going to be 2015's Ant-Man. I'll have to double check on that. Don't be surprised if it's not, because we might do something different. But
also, don't be surprised if it's not next week. We've never been consistent before.
No, well, we were when we first started, but not so much anymore. We have lives now.
It's been a while. So.
We have lives now. But anyway, Ant-Man, probably. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you guys another time.
Peace.
How do we look?
Well, we're not the 27 Yankees.
We got some hitters.
They're good. They're not a team.
Let's beat them into shape.
Avengers,